All right, welcome everybody to this week's episode of the Cosmic Joke Podcast with Victoria and Randall. How are you, Victoria?
Good. Another
Yeah,
beautiful day. Happy to be here.
yeah. Looks like you still have that snowstorm going on from last week.
I know it's Canada. What can I say?
Yeah, I decided to join the tropics. I was in the Mayan. I think the Mayan, or was I in space last week? So today I thought I'd be hanging out in my jungle hideout. So. Anyway, so how have you been this week? Has anything unfolded that has been, necessary for this week's topic?
Oh, you know what? This is the first time I've been able to sit down today. So you know what? It's been a little crazy. So I'm feeling pretty good. I feel like I actually got stuff done.
All right, good. And things have been going well for you?
Absolutely. You know what? It's good. Actually, things are looking up. So I'm happy about that.
Right, absolutely. So, right, I hear you. It's been going great. So we decided we were chatting, and 1 second. Sorry, this is the joys of not having any place to do something but in public. So somebody came by to bother me. Anyway, not a bother. So that being said, let's keep trucking. So we decided we were going to chat about relationships.
No.
And is it always a sober state? I don't know. Because sometimes I get intoxicated with love in relationships, and that's actually a trigger of mine to look at. And why do I get intoxicated? That's actually the cosmic joke telling me I'm about to get my ass handed to me with a new set of lessons I've learned.
Absolutely. Riding the highs and lows of love. No, it's not good. Like when we were talking about this beforehand, I was like, Randall, I'm going to get in trouble with this category today. It was not my first choice.
Hey, if your intentions are pure through your heart, I don't think there's going to be any problems. But I'll tell you what I have learned. I will say every time I've learned this. I'm grateful. I'm seeing patterns. I'm learning. Right. I'm teachable, and every time if I happen to meet somebody new that I have this really crazy, intoxicating, trippy energy with, it's usually a setup. So I've learned to be very careful when that comes, because it's like, wow, it's this crazy, like you almost don't have a say in it energy. But now when I realize I feel that, I'm like, no, run, but not run too, run away.
Absolutely, because that's how you know it's going to be a trick.
Right. And so but don't get me wrong, I mean, this is the funny part, right? I mean, if I'm here to learn and evolve and learn lessons and practice these principles in my life, you at some point, we have some sayings in our space, right? You shouldn't date for the first 12 months of sobriety, and I'm working on year 8, and and this year I realized you shouldn't date for the first 12 years of sobriety. But that's definitely the hardest relationship with self. If we want to really learn about ourselves, get in a relationship. It's the humbling one, right? At least for me, So, but I have learned that every time I get that intoxicating feel of super pull, that's like, oh my gosh, like it's literally like that's going to come with some really trippy that I apparently need to learn, otherwise I want to be there. But I'm very aware, and I'm like, okay, I step my toes in the water, and of course my dumbass still has to see what it's all about a lot, or the few times it's happened. But anyway, it's relationships and recovery or sobriety it's a really interesting thing to participate in. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. Okay, so let's start with a few before and afters then. So like when you were not sober, what was your typical relationship like?
Well, truthfully, when I was not sober, I was married for quite a few years. So, but I could go back to before that, which was way back. So my typical relationship and addiction and alcoholism was very chaotic. I knew it all. Nobody could tell me anything. I was running the show. It was very one-sided, a lot of double standards. things that I'm not very proud to be. But that's, I was also obviously, I realized I look back and a lot of fear of having to take care of like a family and things that stressed me out because I didn't have any tools to deal with stress and anxiety. And so, I was in a lot of control. I had to control everything. Um, and of course, the universe gave me my ex-wife, who I love to death this day. We get along better now than ever, now that I really understand who she is and why we were together. But at the time, we literally were there to magnify each other's darkest shadows, and our shadows grew with each other. We had these little baby shadows that came together, but they magnified each other into I don't want to say toxic, because truthfully I don't think anything's toxic, because we have to grow. So if anything, is it toxic if you're growing? But let's just say some brutal lessons that she gave a lot of power and I took a lot of power, and it was a perfect storm to really bottom each other out to where we both got sober eventually. And so it was interesting. Let's just say my relationships were probably not, let's put it this way. I was definitely probably a narcissistic. I don't know if I want to say I was a sociopath, but let's just call it narcissism. Probably narcissism on rocket. I will say narcissism on rocket fuel is probably, I'm comfortable stating that about myself, unfortunately, but I'm real.
That's interesting, because it's like, yeah, no, I can't imagine you as that type of person. So it's like, it's interesting to see how much things change once you're sober. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's different. But even for myself, no, yeah, I was an absolute fucking dumpster fire when I was in relationships before, because it's like it just consumed me as a person. Like the things that I would accept people doing to me, and like the way that I would just just, I guess, react and lash out on people just out of frustration, that I wouldn't get my way and just react out of just, I guess, pure frustration. It was just completely out of character, and I just was never feeling like I was ever in control of myself or my emotions or the direction of my own life. And yeah, it just hell of a person, it was,
yeah. Well, I definitely always got my way. I will say I always got my way, because I made sure I got my way, and the only way was my way. No, I'm not proud of these things by any means, but it's how I rolled at the time. I was like a scared little boy that grew up into a scared little boy, but had no idea, because I had no self-reflection capabilities or the ability to even admit anything was wrong with me. Right, I was perfect, and no, I knew right. Nobody could tell me anything. I wasn't teachable. So it's very humbling looking back. It's really I understand. I understand the perfection of why it needed to happen for me and her. However, that doesn't make me feel good about that role and having it. It was I'll tell you, a lot of people look at it and say, oh, the narcissist and the empath. Well, no victims, only volunteers, right? At the end of the day, they're the same thing. They can't exist without each other.
yeah.
People, oh, you're an empath. I'm like, why do I keep getting a narcissist? Well, maybe you're just weak and you keep getting strong, because once you become strong, you'll no longer reflect back that. You know what I'm saying? The polarity of the yin and the yang. It's like, narcissists only come because we need them as a teacher to take our power back, and in sobriety, if I flipped the roles in relationships where I became I don't even like the word empath, let's just say the one that maybe had guilt and shame over being that role, and then getting flipped to have to live what my ex-wife lived, to now maybe play out some karma or maybe experience it to see what I put someone through that we're now, and subconsciously I recognize it, but I'm like, oh, well, I did it, they'll get better. I did, and I created a justification for me to stay in a relationship that was very similar to that. And I do believe this soul path or self-actualization, right? We have to live every single possible archetype, maybe I'd call it, or on this journey back to our authentic self. And so I've been the narcissist, I've been with the narcissist, that whatever other roles people want to talk about. I think we, on our hero's journey, we get to experience them all. And I think that's part of the beauty of finding out who we really are, is you have to experience them all to have the contrast to become, or the awareness to become what you truly are.
So then, where you're at now, is it a conscious choice to find some form of neutrality, or do you lean more towards one way or another? And is it on purpose?
Neutrality within myself?
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, of course. I mean, I I mean, let's be real. It's nice to stay in neutrality or equanimity, right?
Mhm.
But it's hard sometimes, right? I mean, we do have things we need to learn, and I think the art is if I get pulled out of the neutrality or equanimity, that's something I need to learn, right? Otherwise, I wouldn't be pulled out. I mean, same thing I just said earlier, no victims, only volunteers, right? So, like, if I'm getting pulled out of neutrality, but that's the human experience, right? So, relationships are definitely the one that really teach me so much about myself, and to always look at myself and quit pointing fingers at the other person, understand, why the universe put us together and how we're going to grow and evolve together, and it's really cool. Actually, dating or relationships and sobriety is actually really neat, and once I quit blaming and really trying to understand and really evolve, they're really beautiful. But the other cool part is I've had some that were just seasonal little ones that came with great lessons, but when they leave, there's no hard feelings. There's no like, oh my, like I don't carry that resentment or that bitch, bitch, you came wrong. You did everything wrong. It's like, no, we had a great time for a little bit of time, and at the end, it just didn't work out. That's okay. That season or that, that resonance in the quantum field, came together for what it needed for that brief time, and then it was done. And leaving relationships now is, the acceptance of, knowing that it's okay. It's very, it's very beautiful. Yeah. It feels great. Let's just say that, to not have to carry around that stuff. When I was a kid, I'd break up and I'd be, I'd carry around pain and hurt forever. You know what I mean? And then I would put up walls to never love or be loved because I didn't want to get hurt again, or, and so then I started, actually, this is bringing up some good stuff today. I actually remember when I was with a girl when I was like 18 that totally ripped my heart out, left me and went with this other guy, and it totally hurt. And I remember telling myself literally, I will hurt. I will never get hurt again. I will hurt before I get hurt. And how like bad is that?
Yeah, sad.
Like, how gnarly is that though, to tell yourself, right? Because, I mean, usually most addictions and or alcoholics and addicts are, very sensitive, right? And that pain, that hurt, that pain, it ripped my heart out. I'm like, I'm never feeling this again. So I'll go do this to however many other people now because I don't want to feel it. And like, that's just such a sick way of looking at things, So I'm really stoked I don't have to do that anymore with, relationships. I'm able to see the healthiness and the beauty and the perfection in them. And if they don't work out, that's totally okay. No hard feelings. We gave it a shot and we had fun for a while, and, who knows, and then the universe.
So say we're in a rare disease state. Okay, so lessons become kind of this central kind of focal point of being in this relationship. So when you're sober and healed, what becomes the goal of a relationship then? Is it just spending time together? Is it just like, what do you think it is?
The goal of a relationship?
Yeah.
Laughter, of course.
Having fun.
No, I'll be honest. It's
simple.
I love to learn now, and I love to learn about myself. And so to me, it's like, ooh, what's going to be next? What am I going to be shown? And it's always, it's more like, okay, what's this next set of lessons going to be? Because we're always learning. I don't know I don't think we ever stop until the day we leave this plane. And so it's fun. It's not only even learning, but it's also maybe meshing and resonating, because it's always that cosmic joke, right? That you come in and you get it, and you literally reflect back all this, the wow, that fresh, the honeymoon phase they call it, right? Where everything's like, oh my God, I love this person, so amazing. And you see all those things that are the perfections, and then the cosmic joke is like, what is it, a couple months in, now all of a sudden that reflection starts to show some deep shadows that you need to look at, like, right, that need to come out. And it's like, it's fun. It's like, okay, so you almost could get rid of the honeymoon phase, right? Well, it's, I don't know if you want to get rid of it, but you know what I mean? It's like, okay, you know what they are. Like, you come in, you're like, well, okay, this is the phase where it's always really cool, and when's that going to slowly morph into, seeing the lessons and seeing the true personality and You get it when the lessons kick in, and things aren't so rainbows and unicorns every day, right? You have a storm, you have a storm occasionally, and you need storms to grow, right? So
yeah, into something like stable and I guess calm, something more relaxed. Well, I guess like me and my partner just went through something like that recently because I restarted a medication. It made me absolutely mentally insane for like a couple of weeks. And this poor man, he was so gentle and he was so loving. He's like, "It's okay, honey. I know you're crazy because of your medications," and he was just completely fine.
yeah,
And I was just nuts. He just brushed it off like it was nothing. And I'm like, bless him. He's just so sweet.
sounds like you got a good one there,
Yeah, he just took it like a champ, and I was just like, oh my goodness, I'm just so embarrassed.
Well, it's always fun and exciting, I don't know. They're fun to play with in real time, relationships. It's like, as I'll see things and I'll understand why I'm seeing it, and then when I need to change the lens and look at something from a different perspective, and then you can watch it change. Relationships are a gift. They're fun. It's a trip, though. I'll be honest, it's a trip at this stage of the journey of life, right? Because literally, I know in the quantum field, whatever we're attracting is our mirror, and it's wild getting into a relationship with yourself, honestly. And it's yourself. You're like, okay, here we go. Like, let's see how this goes. Like, have I gotten any better, or am I sicker than ever? Which,
right? Well, because it's
not, I'm sicker than ever, but that's okay.
I know, because it's so hard. Because like anytime things are just like too calm, I want to go and fuck things up, and then it's just like it's so hard to just like sit there and be like, okay, no, things are just okay. It's just time to be calm and like be relaxed and just ask, hey, is everything okay? And you'd be like, everything's great, and then just let it go. And it's so hard to like come from like that like healed sober state. That's like I've worked so hard in my life to just have things calm. Now I have to accept that they're calm and like not rock the boat. And it's like it's honestly it's very difficult. I find it very difficult to just let things be okay. Like, have you had that same experience? Like for me, I find it very difficult to just let things be all right. Like I constantly have this like need to want to sabotage things, but at least I can recognize I have a need to want to sabotage and I can let that go.
I hear you. That's a great. I could tell you this, and we've talked quite a bit the last few years, obviously. My ex-wife was very calm and super calm, and I'm like, man, she's so calm. I want some more energy. And then the last few girls I've dated, which I've only dated a couple girls in my 8 years of sobriety. It hasn't been that many. So, but it's definitely been, they both were very opposite of her, very energetic, very, very high energy. And I'm like, wow, I just want some peace, like this shit's wild, but, there's a reason why I attracted that, whatever reason it was showing me that perfect polarity of I'm over here calm as shit, and they're opposite as calm as shit, and so I'm like, okay, maybe I shouldn't be so calm. Maybe I need to bump up my energy levels a little bit to balance out the scales, you know what I mean, or to create that happy medium. So I haven't had that. And you know what I'm talking about. You've been around, so my variety have been anything but peaceful. But something I'm apparently attracted to that. I love it at first. There's something about it that I love going into that crazy high energy. It's like I don't know if it's my because with that high energy intention, with that high energy, they tend to give a lot of attention in a strong way, and my ego must love it. Randall's like, yes, I love all this. Like, ooh, I'm the center of attention, right? And I fall for it, every time, and then all of a sudden I'm like, somewhere that it flips, and I'm like, ooh, okay, like I don't really need that much. Like, let's back it off. But yeah, I'm the one who came into it, seeing it the whole time, and they haven't changed. I have. I just
it's too late.
and then they're like, well, what's wrong? And I'm like, well, yes, well, and this is on me. This is where I need to learn and become better, because I realized I get pulled into it. It's like so I bring up that intoxicating energy, right? I'm a freaking addict, man. It's intoxicating. It's like a drug, right? So I go for that, right? I'm attacking that, right? Because I love that high, And then all of a sudden I'm fucking worn out. I'm high as shit, like, right. I'm like, geez, okay, I cannot, like, this isn't like a high vibration it's like a chaotic vibration high, right? And I'm just like, no, this isn't like, it's non-sustainable, right? Like, it's the type of high that crashes, not that neutral equanimity high where you're just so high and neutral that it's just sustainable, and there's no crash, right?
It's not high in love. No, it's
there the dips and these, right? And for some reason I get my last few have been very erratic, and I love it in the beginning.
So then what are you going to do about that? Now that you see the pattern, do you plan to change, or is that one of those things that you want to keep going through a couple of times more?
I'm pretty I don't know, I'm my own social experiment, so I would hope that I have internally processed this, as obviously, because I'm speaking about it, so I'm aware. I got to make my unconscious conscious, so I am hoping to get it a little bit toned back. I would like it to be a little toned back, which means I need to step up my probably a little bit. I don't know. This is a trippy journey. Let's just say that relationships are wild. I love them to death, and I could also say, it's funny because here I am at my age, still single at the moment, which is fine because my divorce just got finalized 6 months. I moved. We were separated a long time ago. Like 5 years ago. So when I say I've dated a few people the last 8 years, I was already separated, but the divorce through COVID took a while. So my divorce is finally finalized. But I could also say this: I'm actually currently in a state of mind where I am completely fine being not in a relationship. I'm not on any dating websites. I'm not actively needing something outside of myself to fulfill anything right now, and that feels pretty fantastic. I've pretty much, I'm in a relationship with myself and my higher power right now, and I'm cool with that. You know what I mean? So like when it comes, it comes. And I'd be lying to tell you if I know it's going to come. I think that's the whole cosmic joke. You always get what you need, not what you want. So hopefully my next need is something that's a little bit more sustainable, not so many peaks and valleys. Man, I love those peaks, but those valleys, I got some issues.
Oh, yeah, because like I could definitely say, in past relationships, all my past relationships had the peaks and had the valleys, because I was the same thing. I used to ride those roller coasters, and I loved the drops. Like, they were my favorite parts. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I was 100% into that. But
maybe we're adrenaline junkies, and that's why we get it. I don't know, because I look at myself and go, why do I attract to somebody who's got so much polarity still, the highs and the lows? Because I don't feel like I do. I really feel very neutral, very, and I like to just be in my awareness, watching things, and attached with no shifts, so to speak, but maybe I don't, obviously, hey, I definitely don't know everything, and I'm here to learn, and the world shows me what I need to learn, and obviously I have a lot more to understand, so
I think for me, it was just entertaining for me, I think. Because it's like, I look back at those relationships, like, I knew none of those were going to work. You know what I mean? And like, I subconsciously knew, like, even when I was in there, I'd be like, oh yeah, I want this to work forever. And it's like, no, I knew that they were never going to work. Like, there was no intention that it was like ever going to be anything more than it was. You know what I mean? Like, but it was fun. Like, it was just like, even though it was so toxic, like, it was just like, there was some kind of thrill behind like this whole thing, and it was just entertaining, honestly. Like,
I don't resonate with the word toxic so much, because most humans would call it toxic, but it was the perfect storm. It was literally always the perfect quantum state of resonance to create the outcome necessary for the experience of the growth, right? And that's the reality. It's always perfect. And some of the perfects are brutal, right? Some of them are fun. And like I said, I've been on both roles. I've been on the role that I never want to be on again, and I'm not happier about. I can't have guilt and shame over it, because I did it, and it was also part of me being a reflection for someone that needed that lesson, right? And then I flipped. So they're very it's interesting for sure. you know.
So what's your aversion to the word toxic? So why is like toxic like a taboo kind of word?
Yeah, I don't, because like I said, I think as humans we apply toxic as something that's unhealthy, it's toxic, it's corroding, you know, but toxic relationships aren't corroding, they're actually usually building character and strength, right? I mean, for you know, the party that's saying it's toxic, the person that's toxic doesn't think they're toxic, right? And then the person who's saying they're toxic is also generally choosing to stay there, right? So really they're still staying there, no victims, only volunteers. So, you know, until that lesson's learned, it's really a perfect match that needs to come together to, you know, evolve. And sometimes the toxic or me, the alcoholic, the narcissist, you know, probably could have used more accountability, but unfortunately at the time that other person didn't have the strength to love themselves enough to have prove accountability, right? But it's the same thing. It's literally the same thing that needs itself to exist. It's not separate and apart. You know, it's one entity appearing as two. So I don't know if entities, it's called a vibra, one quantum particle, all right, you know, that is necessary for its evolution on this planet, you know. And so, you know, I don't see any of it as toxic. I do believe in my lower states of consciousness or alcoholism and addiction, you know, the lesson, there was a lot more brutal suffering. It wasn't so much joy. I mean, it was definitely a lot harder. You know, but that's what gives you polarity and contrast to when you are able to step more into the present time moment with joy and bliss, you know. And I wouldn't know how good this was if I didn't know how bad that was. And really they're the same thing.
So when you were going through it in those moments, would you have called it toxic, and you're only not calling it toxic now that you're in hindsight kind of thing?
Well, so with like my ex-wife, I would have never called it toxic because I was the toxic one, right?
Oh,
I didn't know. You know what I mean? I thought I was perfect.
okay.
Right? You get what I mean?
Yeah,
So like,
yeah. No,
like,
that makes sense.
this is toxic. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, this is
Yeah.
like, there's nothing wrong. This is normal.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know what you're fucking talking about. Don't tell us anything.
My
You know?
ex-husband's like that because it's like I don't even bother arguing with him because he's convinced he's done nothing wrong. Like you can't argue with somebody who doesn't believe that they've done nothing wrong. Like there's no point. Like
Yeah. Well, you know, when you're stuck, well, I think really when you're in a state of ego, I guess we could call it, that you already know everything and you're not teachable, you're not ready to accept any lessons and evolve. You know, it's just where you're at. Your mind does not understand. You literally, when I was that role, I literally thought I was totally fine, but you know, deep inside, you actually feel like total crap.
Really? So did you
Yeah.
have some kind of awareness that you like that something was off?
Yeah, absolutely. This is what I think I was trying to get at earlier, and I think I got sidetracked because of my mind going all over the board, but it came back. And what it is when the narcissist, deep inside, you do not feel good.
Really?
I didn't. Now, maybe a sociopath, maybe they don't have the ability to feel, but I can tell you what, my opinion of being a control freak narcissist is deep inside, you are trying to control everything and be a narcissist because you're so you know, you do not feel good. It does, like, to be in that skin is not fun, you know. And so, right, that's the sick part of this planet, to have compassion and empathy, or to take light where there's hate, or to take love where there's hate, or light where there's dark, right? And to dissolve it by doing the opposite. And yeah, honestly, a lot of these brutal roles, this is why we have compassion and empathy for everybody now, right? And forgive them, for they know not what they do, right? Because when those roles are playing themselves out, like, you know, let's be real, like, assholes through the day are being an asshole because they're not in a happy state. They don't feel good inside, right? So what's our job when we come across an asshole is to hopefully dissolve it by loving it and understanding that, you know, who knows, maybe their mom died or something that day and they're being an asshole. Maybe they're an asshole all day, every day because they're an alcoholic, but guess what? They're sick. They're an alcoholic. So we still have to have the compassion and empathy. You know what I mean? And so that's why the word toxic now, it doesn't resonate for me because I see the perfection of all the roles, but you know, back then, you asked a question, I get all over the place. I know that. So anyway, so back then I wouldn't have called it toxic because I was a toxic. And then I got sober and then I got into some relationships. I'm like, ooh, these are toxic. But then I realized I still needed those then to find my authentic self. So, it's all perception, I guess, right? It's just a word that for some reason at this spot of my journey, I see how everything's necessary for the growth and the unfoldment. So I don't think any of it's toxic.
Mm.
But Buddha did say, the only path to enlightenment, suffering. So
Yeah. Well, it's interesting just to see, I guess, like how did like the way you've approached the view on things is like changed as the years have gone by. So like I guess what was it like, I guess, once you realized that you had to change? What was like that moment of kind of like undoing yourself, I guess, of like you realizing that, you had these bad feelings inside and you were like needing to change that to be the version that you are today so that you could have, say, a healthy relationship.
well, of course, the first one started with addiction and alcoholism, right? When I finally, hit my rock bottom and pretty much tanked my soul. I do believe eventually when our soul is here to learn and express itself and evolve and learn, and what we call spiritual bankrupt, I think, is that the ego has went so long without evolving and growing that eventually it implodes on itself. And then there's only one way, and that's up, right? It's expansion. Like you're dead. You literally are just ego. What I called ego death, I don't know. Let's just say that operating system that I used to thrive on was no longer going to serve me. Alcohol didn't work anymore. Drugs didn't work anymore. They didn't numb all those feelings that I was suppressing for years. I had to deal with them, and I was just broken. And the only thing I could do was change. I didn't have a choice. People say, oh, we have to have a willingness. Well, the only time I have a willingness to change is usually because I'm so sick and tired of the operating system. I drive it like I stole it. You know what I mean? I crash it into the ground. I'll take it as far as I can take it, and I'll suffer and I'll suffer until it just doesn't work anymore. And so obviously the drugs and the alcohol were the first time when it really happened to really get me to a teachable time. But I'm going through it again recently, right? I'm 8 years in, and I'm doing my steps again, and I'm realizing that my true problem, my true issue is fear and low self-esteem and insecurities and no confidence, but really just fear. And that's why I started numbing myself with drugs and alcohol. So, but I had to get there to do my steps again, because once again, I got sick and tired of being sick and tired, because I knew deep inside the last 8 years of my sobriety, like I had these blissful nirvana moments of, oh, the realization of oneness, and wow, we're in this dream and it's all a hologram and it's showing me everything I need to grow. And, I'm aware now and I could evolve. But deep inside me, there was a fear that I still didn't bring to the surface that was still making me feel like shit, honestly. And I have no problem saying, my last years, I was almost like faking it till you make it, right? Oh, I'm sober, I'm better. Well, no, deep inside, that fear was still eating me alive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so now 8 years in, I'm finally seeing it. And so maybe that's also why I was attracting, since we are talking about relationships, I was attracting that, and maybe that fear of a lot of things was bringing me in things to be scared of, with the relationships, right? These things I'm like, ooh, that's scary, like, and now that actually, this is a pretty cool episode today, right? Because now that I'm really bringing these fears to the surface and seeing how they're holding me back from all these experiences of me pushing forward or stepping into my divine birthright, whatever, my purpose. It'll be really interesting to see what comes in next for that relationship, because I do feel like I've just stepped into a whole new vibration of awareness of purifying those old operating systems that really was, I think, the whole planet, most of the planets, there's a lot of fear into the universal consciousness, man. Fear runs really deep.
Mm-hmm. So do you think relationships that are popping into your reality, do you think that there's distractions, or do you think that they're there to show you fears that you still have?
Yeah, possibly all of it, right? A little bit of everything. So, I'm sure they're always showing me, what I'm willing to see and what I'm not willing to see, right? And if I'm in a weird state of like I'm not feeling good,
Mm-hmm.
definitely showing me there's something I really need to look at and wonder why I'm not feeling good about it, because that's that, I don't want to call it a trigger, but it's something within me that if I'm not in that state, in that relationship where it's all beautiful and love, but I'm like kind of in this part, there's something, it has nothing to do with them. It has to do with me generally, So it's Yeah, it's interesting. Like I said, it's exciting. It's
Yeah.
fun. Their relationships are great, but it takes a courageous, brave. For me, it's a very courageous, brave process because I admit I still have some things I need to learn. So let's just say there's never a dull moment.
Okay. So when you get in relationships, how do you go into it? I guess for anyone listening, how do you go into them and know that you're going in them with the right intentions? I guess.
I don't know if I know that, but I'll tell you what I just heard a second ago on my intuition when I finished, and it said is I think at the end of the day, I really need to have a relationship with myself and with the universe first and foremost, and quit trying to have a relationship with something outside of myself. You know what I mean? Because when I start to try to have a relationship with something outside of myself, I get distortion. But if I have a really good relationship with myself, um, my higher power, which to me is myself, truthfully, my authentic self, um, then the world reflects back that great relationship, right? Because I'm not trying to put any power outside of me. I'm not trying to say, oh my God, I need that out there I need that to fulfill a hole. The hole within me, I'm fulfilling with the power within me. You know what I mean? There's that whole flip of perception on reality where when I know it's an inside job and I stay, a lot of the world, Christianity, right? Love God with all your heart and right. And you hear it in a lot of things, but when I love that true relationship with myself, the world usually gives me back a pretty cool relationship. And maybe that's all I've been supposed to be learning. I didn't have a great relationship with myself, and that's probably, who knows, I'm working on it. It's the human this spiritual being in a human body is a trippy thing, right? Spiritual experience. So spiritual being having a human experience, whatever we want to call it, I don't know. I know more is always revealed though, and every time I'm like, oh my God, I totally get it, then it's proven that I totally don't.
Absolutely. And I think it's just magical, Yeah, for anyone that's new to sobriety, if you can, I mean, there's no rules, I guess, like about when to start dating, but yeah, I've always seen the most success when you wait a little while before hopping into it.
Yeah, right. And it's like everything, I joke. We've said, no dating for the first 12 months, which makes sense because, like attracts like, right? So if you're still in chaos, you're probably going to get some chaos. And, I joked about 12, you should be the first 12 years, not 12 months. But then you're really putting off your necessary growth on this planet. And I personally, for one, love this planet. It's very beautiful. However, I'm really more excited to see what's next. So I really want to get all these things out of the way while I'm here,
Yeah.
and I really want to master this plane and move on to the next the next simulation and see what's in that one. So I don't want to put them up. My point is I don't want to put them up for 12 years. It's and when the universe and on top of it, I've also finally realized for me, my biggest thing is to realize I could be content without a relationship. For most of my life, I thought I always had to have a relationship to be happy, and I needed a female in my life to, I just needed it in my life to feel I wasn't comfortable in my own skin with myself. So, I thought I needed something outside of myself to be whole, and I think that's my biggest lesson right now is the most important, since we are on the topic of relationship, the most important relationship to have is with myself.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's really interesting that you say that. Yeah, because like my partner, how I found him, like literally, I was fully content of just dying alone. Like I was like 100% like, oh no, I'm fine, like good. And then he just randomly came along. So I don't know, maybe that's the trick to finding it because you always hear that it's this thing of like once you stop looking for it, it seems to happen. I don't know if there's actually
Absolutely. Well, I think I feel when I'm looking for it, I get more karmic patterns that come in because I'm looking for it. So I'm getting shit that's like, ooh, this is brutal. And when I finally just, I let it go. Don't care. Right. I'm just like, whatever. I'm over it. I surrender. Right. You let it go. You surrender. I've been saying in a funny way, no fucks given. Like, I don't give a fuck anymore. And I mean that in a beautiful way. Like, whatever. I just don't care. Like, and when I could be, which really is saying I'm open to anything to the universe, right? I'm open. I'm just an open, but like whatever my needs are, I don't care. Just, whatever. But truthfully, like I said, is to really be okay with Randy, the guy that I've been placed here with. I gotta Randy's a trippy guy, man, but I love him to death, you know, and I get to hang out with him all the time. So, you know, I got to be okay with his little things that make him him, and be good with that. And then Randy needs to be okay with his higher power. And at the end of the day, they're the same thing. So to merge them and to become one and to live from that state is, you know, I think when the real relation, you know, the peer reflections in relationship show up that are probably the ones that will allow me to say, I don't need to be in relationships. You know, the one you probably settle with for the one you've probably been with for eternity. You know what I mean? And you always have been with, and that's the only one you could ever be with, if you know what I mean on a spiritual way of saying it. It's just what astronaut suit is it going to take to show up? Right? But I need to find that within me first, right? I have to find that within me in order to reflect it back from outside of me. Yeah, relationships are a great way to get there, because I'll tell you what, they're the best. Probably the toughest teacher for me personally is that, you know, that female dynamic, really, the relationship of dating, or, you know, a spouse or a girlfriend type of thing, right? They're
Yeah. Well, relationships are tricky because you have to spend much more time thinking about the other person than you do yourself. You know, you have to get out of that place of selfishness to focus on, you know, how am I supposed to make that other person? Not necessarily that you have to think about how to make them happy, but, you know, I always make sure, like, it makes me sit there and make sure that I'm like, I'm not doing anything to hurt their feelings, because like I'm very quick to jump into a place of like, oh yeah, okay, this thing offends me and I want to say something, and that's a default of my own, you know, character defects, I guess, is that I tend to do that. So it makes me pause and think about something of being like, okay, no, how do I help him, instead of trying to do something that's gonna, you know, go in and mess things up, I guess.
Right, but I can also say I've seen, you know, like everything double-edged swords, right? Like if I'm in a spot where I want to help them, but a lot of times I think I want to help them, but that's also me judging, thinking they need help, and I'll go to think I'm helping them and they don't want it. You know, like they're like, "What are you doing?" You know, like no, like, and I'm like, "Wait, I'm gonna help you with these." And no, and they're fine. They didn't ask for it, so it's always a dance. You know what I mean? It's always interesting to be, you know, but to be aware of things that they like, right? To be kind, to be sweet. You know, everybody's a little, for, you know, I've definitely seen different reflections. Oh, they like this, so let's do this for them. You know, or they prefer that, you know. And but then again, what are roles? You know, we're on a planet where, I'll be honest, at this state of my journey, then they're like, oh, males do this and females do that. It's like, what are these roles really for? Are those just more boxes that are put on us to keep us in this simulation that, you know, because I think it's all malleable, you know, and his energy, you know.
So what's your take? Because you said something interesting there. So what's the difference for you then between being helpful or helping, but or controlling, I guess?
That's a good question. That's interesting. You know, so it's so tough because you know, I'll be honest, sometimes I have a hard time bouncing back from like kind of more my higher self or my human self, let's say. So like I remember one of my relationships, the girl hated picking up rats or mice or something. And you know, and my human gets it. It's like, oh, poor girl, let me go do it. But my soul's like, they should step out of their comfort zone. Big deal. Like it's only a rat. And so I have this hard time, and I'm in it. This is my problem. It's like, so
why is she picking up rats? Like why is she just having random rats? Like a pet?
No, like I'm just using it as like, say there's rats or mice in the house or in the trap, you know, and they're like, oh my gosh, that's so gross. And I get it on the planet. Oh, the male goes and gets it. But at this point, I'm like, I have this really weird time with people being stuck in, well, I'm a female, I'm male, females do this, males do that. It's like, but why? You know, let's break these things and like realize that we don't need to be put into a box. You know what I mean? Like we should all be doing everything. I think that's just me. Like I should be comfortable, you know, cooking, right? I should be comfortable picking up rats. I should be comfortable doing laundry. I should be comfortable making beds. I should be comfortable doing yard work. I should be comfortable fixing things in the house. You know what I'm saying? Like,
okay.
I don't see any difference. To me, it's like, hey, it's a team. We all do what we need to do. But that's maybe some issues I have. I don't know.
Okay, so you want her to pick up the rats, and then so how do you be helpful instead of controlling?
No. So that's what I said. To me, that's where it's confusing. I'll admit it. Like to me, I get it as a human. You want to be helpful as a, you know, the male. Oh, let me get the rat for you. It's sad, but sometimes it's It's like, but I'm hindering you from, growth. Like, it's only a fucking rat. Big deal. Just pick it up and throw it away. Like, step into your discomfort. Like, there's not, discomforts aren't even real, right? Like, we all,
Get up and flick it
just
away.
like, go face your fears. Like, big fucking deal, right?
Aside.
And maybe this is why I'm single.
Like, fuck your rat, just go throw it in the trash.
So. But don't get me wrong, it's just funny things because I'll watch things from a perspective of like, what's the right way, what's the wrong, I don't know, it's a trippy place to be, honestly.
Yeah, I'm gonna lean towards throw the rat outside.
Right, I get it. I do understand. I hear you. I understand. That was just a stupid example, you know what I mean? Like, that was just one example. It's like, I don't know. It's but then again, people have different operating systems. I don't know. I sit in a very weird space, a lot of times when I watch things, I don't understand how most humans even work anymore. It's, a lot of, like I'm, at my mom's right now, obviously a lot. And, and sometimes she's like, oh my gosh, someone's going to come steal our tools. We need to put them away, or lock the door. We're going to get broken into. I'm like, have you ever been broken into? No. Have I ever been broken into? No. Like, people, it's sad to see how deep this fear is with people. Like, they plan for things to go wrong, and it's normal. It's the normal thing. Oh my God, I better lock my door. But why? So a lot of that old operating system that most of the planet runs on, I don't understand it anymore.
Interesting. So, like, do you find that when it comes to relationships, do you plan for things to go wrong?
What's that?
So when it comes to relationships, do you plan for things to go wrong, or do you feel like you're able to go into like any kind of relationship with just like open arms?
That's a rigged question. I don't know. I mean,
well, you walked into it.
I mean, yeah. Does anything ever really go wrong? You know what I mean? I don't think anything ever really goes wrong. I don't. I mean, there's things that are things and shit happens. Is it wrong? Not really.
Okay, so that the relationship's doomed to fall into absolute chaos by the end of it.
No, I don't. That's not. I don't. Like I said, I think, to me, if a relationship falls into chaos, it's generally because that it's no longer resonating, in the quantum, quantumly, it's no longer resonating, and when particles break apart, apparently some people can't do it in a kind, nice way, and so when it, especially things that are, they really want, things that really, lessons that are strong, gnarly lessons that are hardest, they'll fight to stay alive. It'll appear in the material world as some really crazy, chaotic things, things they'll say, like when I was a narcissist, I would do anything I just wanted their attention. So now I'm on this side, they'll just want you, and they'll fight to stay alive. And then something in our human thinks, oh, I'm going to keep looking at it or giving it power to keep it alive. So I don't look at it as chaos. I just look at it as, lessons that, some of them that we really need to get past. They're gonna really, they're gonna do it to someone, and so if it's not me, it's gonna be someone else. That's all they know, right? And so it's like, it's gonna appear as gnarly, crazy chaos because it's freaking out because it needs you to exist.
So it's like the amount of energy that's required to keep it around in your
right. Exactly. So when you take your awareness, and so as it's falling apart, it fights harder to stay alive, which tries to keep your awareness towards it. So I don't see it as right or wrong. You know what I mean? I just see it as we resonate for a while, and hopefully we keep resonating more and more and more. But every once in a while, on the seasonal ones, you resonate, and then as it pushes apart, you know what I mean? That's just how it appears in the material world, right? And it's funny to watch, like, ooh, that's a gnarly, like that's, I don't know. And I'm still on the fence. I've tried to leave my last 2 relationships as friends, and I don't talk to either one of them, but I wanted to be friends. I wanted to be, I tried to be, and it just was, and they like, it was just super weird. I don't know how to explain it. I'm like, yeah, we could be friends, and you try to be friends, and I don't know. All I could tell is you, and my intention was to still be friends, but yet I don't talk to either one of them. And it's almost like not ideal, because I would think, I always want to take the high road. I want us to be like, okay, we had lessons, we had to learn together. It was beautiful. Like, let's be grateful for each other for the growth and why it was necessary for us to come together. Like, that's pretty cool stuff. We're evolving together. Like, how magical is that? But apparently, sometimes that other part, that resonant particle, when it's no longer resonating, it does not like it. Now, which is weird. With my ex-wife, we have a beautiful reflection of, like, we get along better now than ever, and I'm also have the most clear and pure reflection with her now, more now than ever, which is very humbling too, because it's like, why couldn't I figure this out with her? Because should have been able to, but you know what I mean? Like, but I guess it wasn't in my soul contract, if you believe in those, right? A lot of people say we signed up for all these things before we got here, and we have different contracts with different souls, and when those lessons are learned, we are no longer entangled, and then they come apart. But some of them come apart, and you look at it and you're like, well, but it was the same thing. Like, I should have been able to, it's so weird. It's such a mind fuck. Reality's a trip.
So do you think you guys get along better now because you know yourself better and you're more calm, so she's more calm as well?
She was always super calm. You know what I mean? She was always super calm. Yeah, well, truthfully, it's kind of one of those things, I do believe in a truly pure, deep relationship. Like, she was the mother of my children. I mean, that's a gnarly one. She's almost like my higher self, honestly. Like, I could tell you how many times she would tell me things in that marriage that I didn't want to hear, right? But she was always right. She was always right. I mean, it's literally, but I wasn't able to receive. I didn't have the eyes to hear, the eyes to see, or the ears to hear yet, right? I wasn't willing to be open to listen to her because I had no respect for myself, which didn't allow me to have respect for her. And so, it's a trip life, it's brutal because, but I could say that about the last two too. A lot of times they would tell me things and it was the same thing. Like, they were right a lot, but maybe I didn't want to hear it. And so I've learned, anytime I get defensive, it's always something I don't want to hear, because subconsciously, whatever I'm telling myself through them, they're right. And I just don't want to hear it. So if I get defensive, I know I should shut up and really pay attention. And I really need to look at that, because the defense mechanism is a sign of, it's a trigger, right? So if I'm getting triggered, what is it within me that's getting defensive about what they're telling me? But that, takes a pretty deep state of awareness to understand when I'm being triggered, and then to not be actually triggered by the trigger, but to observe the trigger. Oh, I'm being triggered, but I'm not going to react. It took a lot of meditation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the tricky part. The cosmic dance.
Yeah, it's like we say, the cosmic joke. None of this makes, the more I see, the less I know.
Absolutely, every time.
The more I think I know, the more I realize I don't know nothing. And the older I get, I don't know shit. But I know I try to just be a good human being and try to leave things better than when I got there. But who knows, and the trippy part I really realize about relationships is, as that resonant particle, that yin and yang, I am also playing a role for that same thing, is expressing itself through me and making me a role for what they need. And so I'll become things that I've never been or I've never done. And I watch myself do things and I'm like, where did this come from? I've never been like this or done it, because I am that reflection for them, showing, like, put it this way. I one of these days I want to write a book, and the title's going to be, I'll show you yours if you show me mine.
Oh, I like that.
Right? So you get my point. I'll show you yours if you show me mine. So I've also got to a spot in relationships where sometimes I become this thing that is totally new to me, because it's a totally new vibration or lesson with, and I'm like, wow, I've never done this, and I start to do it and I start to live it, because I'm that expression of what that particle needs to evolve. You know what I mean? And it's strange. It's strange to watch.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I like that.
Cool. It's very strange. It's like, wow, so my point is I get used for their evolution, not knowing what I'm even being used for until I become aware of it. And I don't always even become aware of it, but I will notice I'll go through some interesting changes depending on what that I don't know, that life or that thing needs to keep moving or keep doing whatever it needs to do. Sometimes that's good and bad. Sometimes it's I become way more patient and loving, honestly. I'm like, wow, I'm like doing really good. Like this is amazing. It's never been this easy. Like it's not always weird, bad things. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's very positive, beautiful things.
Absolutely.
So, and I don't even know if, So anyway, relationships are great.
Oh, well, by far, this is like my favorite topic that we've done so far. Like that was fun.
Yeah, and then it's back to the old cosmic joke, right? It's really the relationship with self is the most important, and to come full circle after we talk about it all, it's really an inside job. We know that, we know that, it's an inside job with everything. And,
Yep.
Just having that one relationship with me and my authentic self is really all that matters. But damn, I can say that. It's easy to say.
It's easy to say, it's so hard to do sometimes. But like,
Yeah, here we go again. Randy gets in the way of this shit, man. I'm waiting for him to be dead completely. And one of these days we might. Human dies hard. Dying daily.
So I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens next.
Yeah. The cool part is I don't even. For me personally, I'm at a spot where I'm really not too worried about what's going to happen next. Let's say, I don't know. I have some interesting things in relationships, Sean. Relationships will be a big topic, right? Because a lot of people want to say, oh, I have a relationship. My human wants to say right now I have a relationship with my mom that I'm going through, because I'm staying with her, helping her. So I have that relationship I'm working on. And then I have a friend that meant a lot to me a long time ago that's back in my life right now that we've been spending some time. And that's a relationship. And then there's me and you, and that's a relationship. And then there's me and my kids, that's a relationship. But the reality is that's all an illusion. None of those, there's only that one relationship I need to focus on. And then all those other ones are usually pretty much handled, what's the word a friend of mine told me recently? So simple, but not easy.
Oh, okay. I like that.
Simple, not easy.
Simple, not easy. You
So
said
simple. Yeah. It's the concept is so simple.
Yeah.
But yet ego, it makes it so not easy. It's like it's a simple program for a complicated mind, right? But
because you go to do it and it's just because you just get pulled into it so fast, so like it's just so easy to get detached again.
yeah, it's a paradox. And then there's the paradox, the cosmic joke, the whole paradox, Alan Watts talks about, like the sphincter law, right? The law of the, let's actually talk about that one because it's funny. The sphincter law, right? That's like,
what's that one?
Well, we all know what a sphincter is, right? So, when you just relax, your sphincter works better. When you tighten up, it doesn't work so good, right? Which is basically saying the harder you try to do something, the more you're keeping it from happening, right? Or when you just relax, everything flows.
So don't tighten your butthole.
So sit back and relax. But you get the point. The paradox with everything on the planet. The harder you try, the more you keep it away. The more you stress. You get it. It's just sit back, relax, and float down the river and enjoy the view. And whatever comes into your reality is exactly what's supposed to be there. And whatever relationship, or whatever. I don't want to use that word because we're trying to stick with that non-dual relationship right now. But whatever shows up in your reality, to realize that it's all just part of you finding your authentic self.
Exactly, the mirror, the all that is the one thing, the void, the matrix, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I like you call it the hologram. The holographic house of mirrors.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the easiest way to say it, I think.
Yeah, the illusion of separation. It's the veil, right? The removing of the veil.
I like it.
So. Well, I enjoyed today. Today was fun. I was some good laughs, and some good cracking up, and
Successful podcast number 4. We did it.
absolutely. Well, and I'm still wanting to hear some people's feedback and opinions on things because I need all the help I could get personally. So,
That's good. So yeah, I hope we get some comments. I like this one. This one was fun. So yeah,
awesome.
hopefully leave comments, questions, anything you guys want in the comments below, and we'll see you next week.
Sounds good. Yep. Bye, Victoria. Have a good week. See you everybody next week. Bye-bye.
The outro is just gonna be us staring until the button